right, everybody. Oh my God. Man, oh man, Chevys, I'm so happy this guy coming on my channel. Oh boy, I tell you, here at Strong Inspirations, where me, Anthony Brogdon, come up with these brilliant experts. And I know they vet me, but they like what I'm doing, and I let them do the talking. This is a chance to share some of that knowledge that they've been studying for many a year with you, my friends. And we're growing here on the channel. We're growing. I just did an interview with a guy out of South Africa, and he's gonna turn me into other people. I'm across the globe. There's a video on the channel now with a lady out of Australia. And I'm soon to release, I shouldn't even put it this way, there will be a video on the channel with a lady out of Ireland, and so on and so forth. It's my way of letting people tell their stories and keeping this history alive, because they've been studying. The guy on the channel, he got a ton of books behind him. I know he done read them all. He read them all. He wrote books, everything. This is what I do. Let me give you a couple tidbits here. I'm having my own festival in 2022, Memorial Day weekend in Quindaro, Kansas. And I've been talking to my people, and I've been, doing them Zoom meetings with them. We're going to make sure that it's tight. You want to come to this, and I can only accept 1,000 people to show up. We're going to, Quindaro is right across the Missouri River from the state of Missouri. Missouri was a slave state. And when the river froze at the middle of the night, some of them brothers and sisters ran across that river and got to Quindaro, to the free land. And I interviewed a guy, it's on the channel, whose great-great-grandfather did this. And he was so tough that when he got there, he started a business and got some money and provided for his family. They have a museum there. It's right outside of Kansas City, Kansas. So we're gonna have a festival, May 27th through the 29th. Friday is a party in a barn. So don't come dressed up, wear your dusty blue jeans and your dusty shirt and your dusty shoes. We're gonna take a sip of some moonshine. I don't want nobody getting drunk. Sweet tea, and we're gonna do some dancing, and we're gonna have a good time. It's open for all people of a conscious mind. And then the next day, we're going to have a tour of the city and see what's all going on and that kind of thing. I'm trying to find a boat that will float us down the Missouri River, just to see how it went. And then we're going to have let's call it this, a black picnic. Because, picnic got a different connotation to it to some folks. I never thought of that. They say, no, man, we don't call it a picnic. I don't care, we're going to use the word black picnic. Because you know what I mean, right? And so we're going to do that, and then we're going to stay and have a bonfire and look at the stars and feel them voices and them people and what they went through, what they put their life on the line for. I want to go, and I figured, why should I go by myself with me and a few other friends? Let me get 1,000 more people to come, and then the people from Quindaro, they're going to host us. They're going to make some money. And hotels and all that. It's gonna be a good time. I'm gonna do a couple of them next year. I don't know if the other one's gonna be as big, but who knows? Because there are festivals that we don't know about, like the 8th of August. If you're not familiar with that, there are 2 videos on the channel of 8th of August. So check that out. So that's something that's going on. And just a lot is happening here at Strong Inspirations, my friends. Somebody asked me, y'all hear me ask you, I want you to subscribe. Just hit the button. That's all you do with your cursor. It don't cost no money. You don't give no information. It just helps me understand that you following me. How about that? And I know who you are. And I'm gonna do some perks for my subscribers. I got to figure this out. And so come on now, hit the subscribe, hit the like button on this video. This guy is smiling. He read all these books. He know what he's talking about. He's gonna share some of this information with you. You're gonna be blown away by this interview. Watch, like it, hit the notifications bell, because now everybody, I promised you that I was going to put up a new video every day this week, and I have. And the day I put up one with a Dr. James Tucker, he's in St. Louis, where he talks about, hey, Juneteenth really wasn't the day to free those slaves. It was those governmental amendments to the Constitution. Not don't love Juneteenth, but let me just give you the real scoop. It's on the channel. Tomorrow I'm releasing a video with a lady by the name of Alyssa Keller. She's in a small town called Hopkinsville, Kentucky. A lot of slaves were going around in Hopkinsville and they were picking tobacco. And she tells how the tobacco thing, she's got a museum there and got an extensive Black history exhibits. I even asked her, how you walk around that town? Because you know some names. She said, I got to keep, you know, she didn't address that. I understood that because she got to go in the coffee shop after the video. But she's still doing it. And then other videos will be on there. What I love for you to do for me is watch my movie. I'm a filmmaker, everybody. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America, and it's streaming on Amazon. It took me 3 years to do this. It's good. It's on the rise of Black business in America. Slaves who own businesses, slaves who bought their freedom. I named names. Madam C.J. Walker actually was not the first Black millionaire woman. She was very flamboyant, but she worked for a lady who had a lot of money. She was very flamboyant with hers. So we're going to let it go that she was the first. I don't care who's the first. There were a lot of them. And we talk about that in the movie. It's streaming on Amazon. Here's my book. Can you see it, my friends? Black Business Book. And, you know, I tell you, when I was titling it, I kind of thought of something very, very simple. And that's what it is. Black Business Book. All right. It's over 200 facts. Amazing facts. Somebody sent me a message. He said, man, that's the most comprehensive Black history book he ever read. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna use that tag. If you read my book and don't learn nothing new, I give your money back. A book with a money back guarantee. There it is. Whoop, there it is. Get this. It's over 200 facts. And it's amazing stuff. And I tell you this, I'm not no big book reader. You know, this guy here, he got a lot of books on him. I know he probably read big books too, but I like the books to get right to the point. That's what this does. But it's got 17 chapters. So I don't give you no commentary. I don't try to interpret the fact and, you know, because I'm, you know, you got to be brilliant to do that. So all I did was tell you the fact. I found the fact. I reworded it so it can't be plagiarism, right? Then I give you the link in the back of the book where I found the fact. Because I had one guy, he was reading it. I was playing tennis and, you know, I carry the books with me everywhere I go. And so I, you know, had the book. Hey, man, you know, I just beat him. He was feeling a little sad. Hey, man, I got this book, you know, see if he go another step further. So he started looking at it. He said, man, you just beat me, but I gave you the money for the book too. I said, oh my God. He said, but man, I just saw one I never heard. You sure you're not telling no tale? I say, it's in the back of the book, the reference, the link. Everybody, so you hear me, folks. I'll see what I'm doing. I'm serious, man. This thing is going. And the guy I got on the channel, man, I'm so excited. He come on here. I sent him an email. That's all. He don't know me. I sent him an email. He said, man, I know he looked me up though. He said, yeah, okay, I come on. Cool. And he gonna tell it like it is, because he is what I call strong. S-T-R-O-N-G, strong, strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And he's a strong man. Here he is. Introduce yourself. Let's get it on. Thank you.
Wow, that's a challenge to keep the energy level up.
Yes.
My name is Dr. J. Michael Butler. I am a Keenan Professor of History here at Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, the home of Fort Mose, yes. One of the oldest forts for freed African Americans in the state. it provided a buffer for the city of St. Augustine. I think you've done a little bit on that on your channel. And what I will say is that you've covered South Africa. Well, today we go into South Alabama because that's originally where I'm from.
Okay, then since you said that, you are what part of Alabama?
I'm from Mobile.
Mobile.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, growing up in Mobile, how you like Black history, man? I got to ask you, to be honest with you. Well, how that come about?
You know, you're not the first person to ask that question, and it's a legitimate question. You know what? I fell in love with history as a kid, and I've always been, shall we say, intellectually curious.
Yeah.
Well, I majored in history at Spring Hill College in Mobile, and I had the courses on World War II, and I had the courses on the American Revolution, and I had the courses on the age of Louis XVI. But I never had courses on Southern history. I wanted to learn more about the region that I loved for a variety of reasons. So I decided that if I'm going to study Southern history, I needed to go to a place that had a center for the study of Southern culture, and that was the University of Mississippi. Well, Mr. Brogdon, I put in my application, ended up at the University of Mississippi history program, and learned very rapidly that I knew nothing about a region that I intended to dedicate my life studying.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there. How about this one?
Yes, sir.
Did you go to integrated school?
I did. And in fact, as I look back, I was in one of the first generations of a fully integrated experience. So yes, sir. You know, 1954 Brown v. Board.
Yes.
It integrated the public school system. But one of the interesting things that I've learned throughout my educational journey is that true integration doesn't happen until the mid-1970s in most parts of the South.
Sure.
And late 1970s is when I entered elementary school. And yes, sir, looking back, I had African-American teachers. I had African-American classmates. I went to public schools. So, you know, I've always grown up around Black people, but I didn't understand Black history. I didn't understand, and to bring it back to the University of Mississippi, I learned that you cannot understand the contemporary South. You can't understand contemporary race relations. You can't understand American history without understanding the African-American experience.
That's right. That's true. I agree.
Okay,
I got some more questions on you then, because you seem like you're okay with it.
Absolutely.
Did the Black people and the white people fight at your school?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. You know, integration was one of those things that we were told, at least in my communities, was not desirable, right?
I wonder. Yeah, okay.
We didn't. I'm not from my family background is very working class. My dad worked in a paper mill. We grew up in low income apartments, basically.
Oh, really?
We did. And you know,
you grew up with Black people, maybe.
Yes.
They were in your neighborhood?
Yeah. I had to walk through a Black neighborhood to get to my middle school, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I'm gonna stay on this, man. Because you like, did anybody jump on you?
Jump on me? No. Did, you know, the name calling, the bowing up, the, you know, roughing up during a tackle football game? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Didn't, you know, and that's it. I didn't understand what it was I was living through until I started learning the history. And
all right, hold on. Let's go stay on you. I got two more. I ain't gonna hold you up too long. But you seem like you can handle this, and I think people wouldn't mind asking. Has one of your friends ever called a Black guy a nigger?
100%. Yes, they did. They did.
What did you do? You kept quiet. You didn't say anything, or what? To be honest.
I didn't say much, but I didn't discourage it either. And that was because of my ignorance. The racial divide in South Alabama was very, very prevalent. And I'm going to tell you some of my earliest memories of,
Yeah. Okay.
of race and race relations growing up
Yeah.
in South Alabama. I played baseball with a young lady who whose father was known to be a leader of the local Ku Klux Klan. And the reason that we knew that is because he wore the belt buckles to our games that had the burning cross and the 3 letters on it.
Oh, really?
One of my first memories as well, in terms of race relations and history, is the lynching of Michael Donald. Michael Donald in Mobile, Alabama in the early 1980s was killed by local Klansmen and left in a public area as a warning to Black people to know their place and keep their place.
Okay.
It was
Wow.
in retaliation for the killing of a white policeman in Birmingham, Alabama. Bottom line is there was a Klan presence in South Alabama, and in what one of these books behind me calls the last lynching, the Klan actually paraded down a street about 400 yards from our apartment building. So one of my early
Saw him.
I didn't see them because my mother said, you don't want to go out there with that mess. We want to stay inside. But I knew that it happened. And I knew that there were tensions. And from my perspective, what I was told was that it's troublemaking, that we don't want no part of that it's people causing trouble, that it's, all these phrases that are used to describe historical injustices that white folks didn't want to confront. Right?
Okay, how about this? The girl who wore the belt buckle, what was her response to Black people? Could you tell her dad told her things? She said things as jokes, spit on the Black girls, whatever. You know what I mean? If you don't mind saying.
Oh, it was very, very evident they didn't like Black people, period. And they let it be known. Casual use of the N-word. The N-word was an adjective for them. They were, even in my family, those were people not to be trifled with, and they were seen as sort of, we were working class, but they were even lower. So
really? I got you.
It was, I'm not going to say that
I got you.
Anybody did the right thing and said, no, this is unacceptable, or no, nah. These were mean people who were of a different age, but weren't necessarily wrong.
I got you.
So that's my background, right?
Okay, hold on, one more question. I got the answer. What made you, what do you think made them feel that way?
They were threatened.
Really?
I think that it's fear of the unknown, Mr. Brogdon. I think it's the same reason people are afraid now. I think it's the same reason people hate now. They hate what they don't understand, and they fear the unknown. And their way of life was changing. We had moved from a period in which their parents and my parents grew up in segregated schools. So your question to me about, did you attend an integrated school? Yes, I did. My parents did not. It's in the topic of the book that I wrote.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that a little more, how it's not just integration, but it's integration and how do you live with each other in the aftermath. And some people couldn't handle that. To them, it was a world turned upside down. Throughout history, poor white people and poor Black people have had more in common than they've had in opposition to each other.
No question.
But the only thing that white people have ever had to hold themselves above Black people is their race. We're white. So therefore, we can lose everything. We can be poor. We can lose jobs. Our housing might be bad. Our automobiles might not run, but we're white. And therefore, we're better than other people. Well, now what you saw with the age of integration is that you have baseball teams that are racially integrated. That's scary. Well, the father of the young lady that I played baseball with, he didn't have to play with Black folks, but now his daughter has to play with Black boys. And for him, that was a threat. That was scary. That was a world changing. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation.
Okay, I got one more, and then we're gonna go to the thing. This right here is a deep one. How can you hate Black people that much and sleep with a Black woman and have all them babies? And you know what sex is? You stick in your private. You got one of them, you know, everybody, you know the story. And you're gonna do that. What's the psychic?
The psyche is you trying to understand the mind of a racist, and it makes no sense. Racism makes no sense. And if you try to logically understand it, it's going to drive you nuts. Because the question you just asked has been happening since the beginnings of this country. Yeah. And that is, white people who think they are superior to Black people still find a way to justify using their power to entice Black people. Wow. It's you know, I teach a course on U.S. slavery, and it was called the Peculiar Institution for a reason. They're property. Slaves are property, it was thought. Yet they were still people.
Yeah, right.
And if they're people, then they have the same urges we do.
Right.
But I'm superior, so is it about power? Is it about lust? Is it about justifying? It's people can convince themselves of a lot if they think they are better than somebody else.
Yeah, sure. So now when you go to the coffee parties and stuff like that, and not everybody historians, can you bring up some topics like this? You know, did people know you wrote the book that you wrote, that kind of thing? And they're like, oh, here come that guy again. And, you know, we got to change what we talk about. You know what I mean?
I think so. You know,
really?
Do I bring up these topics? No. But when topics come up that are in my area of expertise and understanding, I am going to shed light on those topics. Like I tell sometimes people who look like me and might have my accent, don't assume I share your prejudices, right? I know my history. I understand the importance of African-American history. When people say things that are historically inaccurate or just ignorant, I have an obligation to my profession and to my fellow human beings to correct those misgivings, in my opinion. So when people say things that are historically inaccurate, like, just to give you an example, one time I did let a group of people know that, you know, they asked what you teach. What, you know, you're a professor, you're a historian, what do you teach? Well, like, this semester I'm teaching slavery in the United States. Oh, well, didn't they sell their own people into slavery? No. Who is they? Who are you referring to? When are we referring to? The types of institutions that you think you're referring to are not the kinds of institutions that
they're probably trying to go back to Africa.
So I am able to engage in a conversation with people and hopefully correct some of their flawed historical perceptions.
I love it. You're not putting your life on the line to do this, are you?
No.
You're not scared or something like that?
No, I'm not scared of the truth.
Because what is critical theory? What is that term?
The critical race theory. You know what the critical race theory is? Critical race theory is the latest invention of the right to create a boogeyman that doesn't exist. We are passing laws in Florida to ban the teaching of critical race theory. It's a problem that does not exist, because critical race theory is an intellectual concept that has been vilified and distorted by the political right for their own purposes. Critical race theory is a theory that we cannot understand the progression of American history without understanding the role that race has played since the beginning of settlement in this country. It can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. It can be understood in a lot of different ways. But to claim that it teaches us to hate our country and it teaches us to hate our fellow American is absolutely unjustifiable. And it is the creation of fearmongers on the right to vilify people who want to expose historical truths. When
well, now, isn't it amazing that the University of Mississippi, and I'm sure they didn't have black folks going there 30, 40 years ago, had programs like what you taught at or what taught you? Is that a, can we call the word amazing a miracle?
Well, you know what, Mr. Brogdon, one of the things about growing up in the South that I've really pointed out to students is that one of the benefits is we can't hide from our history. The University of Mississippi is known primarily for James Meredith. The University of Mississippi is known as the flagship institution of what historically has been the most racist state in the Union. How do you address that? Do you address it with historical truth? Do you hide from it? Do you ignore it? Or do you confront it, teach the truth, and have people come to an understanding of one of the things that makes the state move forward is an acknowledgement of what has happened in the past? So yeah, the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, the emphasis on civil rights history has been to educate people or re-educate them, as it was, you know, in my particular example, of what has made this region, what has made this state, what has made this country what it is. And it is a constant struggle to live up to our own values, Mr. Brogdon.
I got you.
That makes us quintessentially American. The civil rights movement, in my opinion, is like, if you examine race relations today, if you understand how we got here today, if you want to understand Trumpism, if you want to understand the Confederate Monument controversy, and you don't understand the civil rights movement, it's like talking about your favorite movie while leaving out one of the main characters.
I got you.
If you don't understand the entire plot and the way that plot has developed, you're not going to understand why the movie ends the way that it does. So from my perspective, a lot of people say they love American history and they know nothing about the African-American contribution to that history. They know nothing about the civil rights movement. They know nothing about how we got to where we are in terms of contemporary race relations, yet claim to love history. They don't love history. They love nostalgia. They don't love history.
Now you in particular had a topic that I know we went offline a little bit, but I couldn't let it go.
Yes, sir.
And so draw me back to, there's something in particular that we were going to talk about.
Oh, it was the Pensacola Struggle. And I guess my contribution to Black Stories is that the city of Pensacola is more like the rest of the South than a city like Atlanta, Birmingham, or Memphis, or New Orleans. The question that really brought me to that topic, Mr. Brogdon, is—
you call me Anthony or something. Yeah, I'm not that old.
I appreciate it.
And we'll edit it too, yeah.
But what happens in a community after integration occurs? Because as we've already talked about, just because you integrate don't mean you live happily ever after.
Right.
What happens in small towns that have to integrate and do integrate? What happens in a place like Pensacola, Florida? And what I thought the interesting part of this research is that it came out of my dissertation, which I completed in 2000, right? So in the 1970s, the two things that became civil rights issues after schools integrated, after public facilities integrated, the two things that remained as symbols that we had not truly progressed as a city or a region: instances of police brutality and the presence of Confederate symbols at the largest high school in Escambia County.
Okay.
So stop me if you've heard this before. White officers abusing their power and killing Black people under questionable circumstances.
Right.
This is nothing new. This is something that's been happening for decades.
Right.
A civil rights movement, which was already present in Pensacola, continued to highlight particularly the shooting death of a man named Wendell Blackwell under questionable circumstances. At the same time, Black students who, by court order, were allowed to enter Escambia High School in the early 1970s.
Okay.
The Confederate flag, the rebel mascot, the Johnny Rebel figure, was used to let them know that they weren't wanted. Black students basically said, these symbols don't represent us. And a federal judge agreed with them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, sir. So we have in Pensacola in the mid-1970s, civil rights activism that shifted from demanding integration and equality to looking at police brutality and the legacy of police officers killing Black people at an disproportional rate as a civil rights issue. And we had the fight against Confederate symbols and images becoming a civil rights issue in the school system after integration occurs. So what all of that really spoke to was how the movement doesn't change, it evolves.
Okay.
Just because integration occurs doesn't mean that we have arrived at a place of equality and equal treatment. And what happens to one of the individuals who was at the forefront of exposing these injustices, one Reverend H.K. Matthews? The story of H.K. Matthews is a cautionary one for any African American who wanted to lead the struggle.
Okay.
For racial equality, because,
Right.
well, as he's put in his book, he believed that he was the victim of illegal lynching. And I cannot disagree with that, knowing the facts and doing the research that I've done.
So he was starting to talk and say some things. The people found out that he was doing it, and what happened to him?
Oh, he was at the forefront. Reverend Matthews is an interesting person because he was a follower and a devout believer in nonviolent resistance.
Okay.
In an era when young African Americans in particular were moving away from nonviolence as a response. And this is the era of Black pride, Black empowerment,
Right.
Black power.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Reverend Matthews is interesting because he was on the forefront. He was the one who was basically saying that this execution of Wendell Blackwell was yet another murder that white policemen have been allowed to conduct. He's leading marches. He's organizing demonstrations. He is the president of the local SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He was also a person that advised local youth. So he became their de facto leader in the march against Confederate imagery at Escambia High. Well, long story short, what happens to Reverend Matthews is that every night they demanded the termination of this officer. His name was Douglas Raines. And a group of in between 100 and 300 local African Americans would gather at the police department and they would lead a chant, 2468, who shall we incarcerate? Untriner, the sheriff, Raines, the deputy, the whole damn bunch. One night he was arrested and charged with inciting a riot because the local police said he threatened to assassinate the sheriff in Escambia County.
Okay.
He was found guilty and sentenced to a period of hard labor in the Florida State Penitentiary, even though people testified that he did not lead the chant, that chant was never said, and that Reverend Matthews did not condone anything that he was charged with. He was eventually, his sentence was commuted by Governor Reuben Askew, and he was later given a full pardon in what was
How much time did he do? How much time did he do?
You know, he did about 8 weeks. He was at Lake Butler. He didn't go to the state pen, but he was the governor's commutation away from going to Rayford State Penitentiary for a crime that he did not commit. He was simply exercising his right to organize, to assemble, and to lead in the demand that a racist officer be removed. Later, he was removed for reasons not related to Reverend Matthews' plight, but it demonstrates how the power of the state to silence dissent is almost all powerful. It was all powerful in the late 1970s, and Reverend Matthews was to be an example for anybody who got out of line and got out of their place.
Right.
And it's a fascinating story. I encourage people to read his memoir. It's called Victory After the Fall. He tells his story, and it's a powerful one.
What's the circumstance behind the guy that they killed, that they talked about?
Oh boy, his name was Wendell Blackwell. He the rumor and innuendo, which is pretty well proven, was
Some with a light white lady.
Well, that he was with his girlfriend was the mistress of this white police officer.
Man, I tell you, the brother, it's always something like that.
But what the officer claimed was that, of course, it was self-defense. That Mr. Blackwell was pulled over for speeding, and he got out and had a weapon in his hand and was shot. Well, none of the eyewitness testimony on the scene could ever place a gun in his hand.
Yeah.
And the gun, it was suspected, was planted. And I think the evidence is very compelling that it could have been planted.
And this was when? Probably in the 60s or something?
No, sir. This is 1974. This
74?
is the 1970s. So a lot of questionable circumstances. The officer was immediately cleared of all wrongdoing.
Yeah.
He was the sheriff said that it was an act of self-defense. He, of course, defended his officer. And Reverend Matthews basically got Ralph Abernathy and the National SCLC to come launch an investigation.
Okay.
And there were several instances before that, including the drowning of 5 black boaters in the Pensacola Bay.
Really?
A series of events that had led to that. The community was on edge. And basically the way that the white community responded was, we've integrated. What more do these people want? They need to quit trying to service themselves and promote themselves. And it was, Reverend Matthews became public enemy #1 to the white establishment.
Oh, okay. You've written other books or other topics?
Yes, sir. I edited Reverend Matthews' memoir, Victory After the Fall, but I also wrote a monograph titled Beyond Integration. And it's about the Pensacola civil rights struggle. Reverend Matthews' story is a part of it. But what it does is take a city and examines it in terms of what can we learn about the civil rights movement, big picture in this town. And what we can learn is that integration does not equal justice. It does not equal equality. That integration is the first step in a process that we still have not come fully to grips with.
How about this? Okay, so you don't want me living next to you. And there's a lot of dynamics to that. All right, you don't like my music, whatever, and maybe I play my music a little too loud. So then I got my own neighborhood. We live together, and some of us can build a house that's nice and big and stuff like that. And then we say, okay, we don't want to live in your neighborhood. But you still take our tax dollars and you still should give us equitable amount of money for our roads and maybe even for our police protection, for our schools and that kind of thing. And we'll stay over here. And now we build our own businesses and we have our own district. And then you get mad at that too?
I hope that nobody has tuned into this broadcast late and think that I have said, I don't want you living by me, Mr. Brogdon, because I would love to have you.
You know what I mean, though.
I know exactly what you're saying, and that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. A lot of things that people say they have problems with people has nothing to do with race, but that's how they interpret it, right? Your example of you might not like me because my music's too loud, that has nothing to do with race. I might not like you because you have people over on the weekends. That has nothing to do with race. Why do we describe that as a racial thing?
Oh, I got
Because
you.
it's the easiest thing to blame, Anthony. It's the easiest thing to point to say he's different. I might not like the white person next to me because they always park in my driveway. But if you black, it's because you black, and that's what black people do.
I got you.
Racism is not logical, but you're absolutely right. The reason that black businesses thrive in the age before integration is because there was no other choice. They were segregated by law, and black people made do in a really, really tough situation.
Right.
And yet they're still targeted because they succeed, even though white people are making the rules. White people are umpiring the game. Black people do well, and we've got to do what we can as white people to get in on that, even if it means we have to burn down Black Wall Street in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Because you're succeeding and we're not. It makes no logical sense because it's not logical.
Yeah, I mean, like in my book, we name about 30, 40 cities where they took freeways and ran right through the black neighborhoods. They did that here in Detroit, and it is on record that they could have went a little bit further down that direction. It would have been less destruction, and just did not want to.
Here to me, Anthony,
it's really amazing.
One of the interesting things here, Anthony, is that, you know, when you study race in the South, the North has probable deniability sometimes by saying that, well, we didn't have Jim Crow laws. No, you didn't. But the residual impact of racism is in things like you just described. It's in housing discrimination. It's in restrictive covenants. It's in city leaders mapping out roads to cut through black communities because they're not as valued as white communities. That is a residual impact of historical racism.
That's right.
That a lot of people don't recognize. Why do we value certain people, places, and voters above others? Because we always have.
That's right.
That's the legacy of racism. And just because you change laws or never had those laws doesn't mean that race does not influence policy. It does. And that's one of the things that history shows us. Race has always influenced public policy.
That's right.
We need to recognize that, face up to it, and stop allowing race to dictate public policy.
I got you. Let me ask you this. I hope this is not too personal. If I don't know, is your mom still alive?
She is.
And she got to be super proud of you.
I hope.
Not just because you went all the way to school from your background to get your doctorate, which I'm sure that was a huge celebration, but because of your attitude. Does she look at it like it was something that I said that made you feel that way? You know what I mean? Does she take earnest to that?
I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
I think, you know, we've never had that conversation. I think we are definitely of different generations. And I think that my mom is proud of me for what I do.
Sure.
But I'm not sure she understands the importance of what I do.
Oh, really?
And that's interesting because her dad, my grandfather, was a minister. And he wasn't, shall we say, he wasn't racially enlightened. So, you know, that's a good question, Anthony. As an educator, though, and I've had these conversations with family members.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I have. You know, there are reasons that I have the views and beliefs that I do. It's called education and it's called maturity. I think that we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
But when we're given historical facts, then we know, and we have to make a decision. Are we going to continue to live in darkness, or are we going to face the truth, admit we're wrong, and educate others about what American history really is?
Woo, there it is.
That's, you know,
There it is.
Anthony, I'm not in the conversion business. I'm not in the business of trying to convince my white brothers and sisters where they're right and where they're wrong. What I am in is the education business. I will give you the facts. I will let you know when you are historically inaccurate.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that you need to accept reality.
Right.
But I will give you the facts.
Right.
That I hope you will use to maybe enlighten your opinions.
I got you. Boom. There it is, everybody. That's kind of like the closing remark. Other than this, how do people find your book and things of that sort? You got a website?
You know what? I have a profile at www.flagler.edu. And you can look me up under Butler, and there's information about me there. But my both books, actually, Reverend Matthew's book Victory After the Fall is on Amazon, and so too is Beyond Integration, which is a history of race relations in 20th century Pensacola, Florida. So you can find both of them on Amazon.
Okay. How about this? Where's Flagler? That's in St. Augustine, Florida?
Yes, sir. We are in, as we say it down here, we are in St. Augustine, Florida, Flagler College. And, you know, the reason that I was hired here is because St. Augustine is the only city in Florida where the Southern Christian Leadership Conference at the height of the civil rights movement had a national campaign. St. Augustine, Dr. King visited St. Augustine. Andrew Young was beaten unconscious in St. Augustine. St. Augustine has a civil rights legacy that very few people other than students of the movement know very much about, but it was pivotal in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yes.
So St. Augustine in and of itself is a historic city, not just because it's the nation's oldest city, but also because it has a connection to the passage of the Civil Rights Act.
I got you.
So it's a great place to be to teach Black history. It is a great place to be to let non-Black students know that this history is your history, and it's my history, and it's a history of the United States and how we are still striving to be a more perfect union. Anthony.
Yes, love it. Everybody, if he did, man, I'm telling you, my viewers, if you don't like that video, I'm gonna keep coming at you. But oh my God, my man, I have no more questions. I got nothing else to say. Your mom, I know she's proud of you and everybody else because you different and people like different and they know you're telling it right. You taking earnest to this. To my people who are watching, I want you to do a couple things. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you don't like no other, but like this video. Buy his book. I'm gonna put the website on there. Go to Amazon and get his book to support that cause. And to you, my friend, I say this. Oh, watch my movie and read my book. To you, my friend, I say this. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing.
You know,
being who you are, just in the simplest of forms.
You said people love this and they love that. You know what they love? They love the truth. They love the truth. Our students can handle difficult history. It's our obligation as scholars to present them with that difficult history so that they can pass that knowledge down to the next generation.
Good enough. Bye-bye, we out. That's it.
That was fun.
Yes, really was.